Katoa, good morning everyone. First of all, I will call for apologies. Do I have any apologies? There appear to be none. I think we've got Andrew Turner for lateness. Is that? Yeah, because he is coming. No? I don't know. I haven't heard. So there, I've received no apologies at all. Did you receive one for? No, okay.
Late.
Oh, that was helpful. Thank you. So you'd like to move that his apology be accepted?
Yes.
And seconded by Phil Clearwater. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. I have a declaration of interest in public excluded item number 12, which is in relation to the court theatre development and lease agreements. So I won't be participating in that item. We move on to public participation. We have a public forum, and I'd like to welcome Nick Usme, a Year 12 student at Geelong Grammar School in Melbourne, and his mother, Ms. Hafimi Abdul Hadi, who is a member of the Brunei Legislative Council, who are visiting Christchurch this week, and they will present to the council regarding the Peace Crane project. So I could invite them to come forward and take a seat at the table. You are most welcome. I'm sorry I wasn't available to meet you yesterday. I know that Councillor Ralph Manji and others, I know Yanni Johansson and Jimmy Chen met with you on my behalf. So thank you both very much for coming. I'm very excited about the fact that you agreed to come and present to the council. I'm not going to turn the clock on because I think this is such a wonderful presentation. Really thrilled to have you here, so welcome.
Sweet, thanks. Good morning, Honourable Mayor Leanne Dalziel and Honourable Council members, ladies and gentlemen, kia ora. My name is Nick, as mentioned, and today I'm here in Christchurch to present these origami cranes as a sign of peace and hope from our school at Geelong Grammar. It was about 2 weeks after the attack on the 15th, where I just woke up and then thought to myself, oh, why not do something for Christchurch? Because in our school we're thought to always think about the outside world, see what's happening, and yeah, so I got together with a group of friends and said, yes, let's do something from Christchurch. So yeah, in total we made about 3,000 cranes, and sadly I only got to bring 2 boxes, one over there and one over here, which contains about 600 of them. And yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the council members that were involved with this project, and yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. So,
Thank you. How long did it take you to prepare them?
to prepare, I think about 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, had to gather all the boarding houses to contribute. So, yes.
So how many students participated in making them?
I think about 5,000 students.
Wow.
From grades 12 to prep. Yeah.
And some of them would never have made peace cranes before.
Nah. So one of the challenges were to actually teach people how to fold them. So we scheduled like meetings from about every fortnight to teach them how to do it.
It's fantastic. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And thank you too. You must be a very proud mother, but also a member of the Legislative Assembly of Brunei. I mean, welcome. As a former member of Parliament myself, it's a real honour and a privilege to have you here as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think for myself today, g'day everyone. I grew up in Australia, obviously. I have a linkage with New Zealand when I was quite young, having spent a bit of time in Pororua, Papakawhai area. I think today, this whole trip is actually just I'm the accompanying parent. I don't actually have an official role for this trip. But I think at the same time, it's good to see the development that's happened in Christchurch and the fantastic, development that's emerged after the crises that you've gone through over the past couple of years. It's very promising to see the immensity of the Christchurch community in the way that you've contributed to your own community building. And hopefully this is a first step that we can maybe do some interchange between our young people. I support a lot of youth entrepreneurship development in Brunei in the various roles that I hold. But like I said, today really is about Nick and what he's doing with the school. I think we're immensely proud as parents, but also as members of our community in Brunei to actually participate in this region. And I think, the relationship between New Zealand and Brunei is very strong because we're both two little giants, I think, in the APEC region. So I think on behalf of myself as well as Nick, thanks for all the warm hospitality that's been conveyed to us. We'll hopefully get to see some of the sites later on today. I haven't been here for about maybe 25 years, but it's definitely changed since I was much younger. I think in moving forward, I think I also want to extend a message of thanks to Vision Australia that actually conveyed the boxes for us without any cost. So this is something that, as a corporate, I think that's their responsibility. So that's much appreciated. But once again, thank you very much for having us, and it's been a great honour as well being in front of the councillors of Christchurch. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else, would you like to say a few words, Ref, in response?
Yeah, no, just really appreciate Nick, you and your colleagues at Geelong Grammar for all the effort that you've put in. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to know how to contribute when you're far away, so the thought and obviously the care that's gone into creating those cranes, they look quite difficult to me, and that you're going to present them down at the mosque as well, so that's something that can hang around and be presented and shown there. So thanks to all your colleagues back at school, and it's great obviously to see that bigger relationship between Brunei and New Zealand being strengthened as well. So it's great to see you. Obviously you're being on ABAC, and we've got APEC here in 2021, so
Inshallah.
that's something to look forward to as well. So hope you enjoy the rest of the trip.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just in terms of steps that you'd like to be taking for building that relationship between young, potentially Muslim people here in Christchurch, to provide that support and linkage with your own school and wider community in Melbourne, and potentially Brunei as well. Is that something that you'd like to see expanded?
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool to see, I guess, in the future. But yeah,
I often think that it's probably sometimes cheaper to fly to Melbourne than it is to Auckland. So I always feel that we're quite close to Melbourne. It's not that far away.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But also Brunei is such an important part of the APEC region. And I actually had the honour of meeting the Sultan of Brunei many years ago. He won't remember me.
You'll be surprised. He's got a pretty good memory.
As a very young Minister of Commerce back in the day, when I attended a forum on human capacity development, actually in Beijing, it's going back quite a way, but probably in 2002, something like that. So. Yanni, did you want to add something? Because I know that you particularly wanted this presentation today.
As the councillor for the Linwood Ward, I just wanted to extend a heartfelt thanks for caring and thinking of us and our city, our community, and the mosques and the victims. I just think it's really touching. I just acknowledge that Christchurch actually was the first city in New Zealand to become a peace city. So the peace cranes have a lovely synergy with what we're trying to achieve. And I think it's also fantastic, as has been said, that if we can support the sharing of cultural difference between young people from around the world towards our city and our community, then we will all be better for it. So thank you so much for your thoughts and for what you've done. It's really appreciated.
Yep, gives us great hope for the future. So look, thank you very much for your presentation. I look forward to see how this relationship develops. But when you go back to your school, in fact, you know, I will send a letter that just acknowledging your presence here today, your gift to the city, or the school's gift to the city, the students, and to acknowledge them for what they've done and that connection that they've made. So thank you very, very much for agreeing to come in today and making it very real for the city as a whole.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, May. Thank you.
Got time for a photo, Leanne?
Well, we'll have a photo with the whole council, won't we? If I come forward, then we could get...
Do you want me to take it on your phone, Nick?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Lovely. Tag everyone.
Yeah, then I can take it round. Yeah. The cranes?
We can all just grab some.
Yeah, so hold one.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, sorry.
So we just sort of...
Oh, was she? Okay. Oh, lovely.
Right,
Righty ho. Are we ready?
warm up.
Lovely.
Yeah?
Say re-election.
Right. Can everyone look forward and smile?
That's great.
Just one more. Is that one on portrait? Thank you.
Should we just leave these here for the day, maybe? Yeah, we'll just leave those here. Oh, yes. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks again, Yanni.
I just had to let you know that the peace guy
Yeah. Well, I didn't...
I was hoping to be here on time.
Yeah, I know. All right, the next public participation, public forum is from Mr. Colin Stokes. Could you please come forward?
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Excuse me if I read this a bit fast, I've just got a bit much to get through, but I'll make it as clear as I possibly can read it. Last week I emailed you details of the misrepresentations in the confidential memorandum from the Chief Executive's Office to the Mayor and Deputy Mayor dated 15th August 2019. It's about the unlawful non-compliant works in the Yoldest subdivision and staff's failures and refusals to enforce compliance upon the consent holder as statutes require. The falsehoods and misrepresentations are irrefutable and well evidenced. I obtained the confidential memorandum under the Local Government Information Act, heavily redacted. It concedes the works were unlawful, but the extent of the unlawfulness and wrongdoing is omitted and grossly misrepresented. The unlawful works allow grossly non-complying and undersized stormwater design that intentionally makes the original landowner's stages of the consent impossible. This in breach of the consent and RMA and an offence under the Land Drainage Act. To cover this up, staff illicitly removed conditions from the consent that protected lower east land in favour of the council for stormwater basins. This is where the upstream road and the original landowner's catchments must go, but pipes were too small to convey the upstream stormwater there. Staff then forged what they purported was a variation consent for stormwater to run to basins uphill land west outside the consent and where the basins are neither permitted or possible. No application was made for this. A plan showing this was simply attached to a variation for something else. The consent required road for the original landowner stages needed to descend 2.6 metres below ground level at its west end to fall toward the impossible west basins. Staff eventually had to concede their uphill west consent was never possible. Despite this, staff are still permitting the consent holder to rely on this uphill stormwater forgery to the west so as not to have to comply or enforce compliance with the east and other provisions. Staff advised me and others that staff will not enforce compliance with the downhill east stormwater nor the impossible west up stormwater forgery while laughing. Staff advised they will lapse our stages of the consent in 2024 because we can't progress them. This despite the RMA provides once a consent has been given effect to, which it has been, the consent does not lapse. Obligations of consents transfer with the consent to new consent holders. That's RMA 101. Staff know this, and it's contrary to what has been advised in previous meetings. Now, the consent holder, Infinity Yoldest, and its major financier that manipulated the transfer of the property to the consent holder, also know this. They knew the conditions when they came in that has to be done. They also knew the works were non-compliant and unlawful. The financier that financed them into it was Dunedin City Council. Both Dunedin City Council and the new consent holder knew the unlawful subdivision works had been unlawfully designed and constructed to cheat me and others of our RMA interests in subdivision stages. In fact, Dunedin City Council, via its 100% owned Delta Utility Services Limited, is the entity that unlawfully constructed the undersized non-complying roading and stormwater infrastructure. Staff have sold their enforcement failures and problems as a private matter between me and or other neighbours to resolve with the original or the new consent holder at our cost. That we have to enforce compliance on them. That's false. It's a simple matter of council's statutory failure to enforce compliance with the consent upon the consent holder. The conditions require the consent holder to provide all roads and services at its cost. Upon compliance, original landowners can then develop their stages of the consent at their own costs. Now, in the memorandum that was sent to the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, staff misled that my main allegation is that I believe the RMA requires the council to enforce the consent holder to develop my land at its cost, rather than at my own cost. That's completely false and grossly misleading. Staff and the consent holder have unlawfully and intentionally made mine and other stages of the consent impossible. The only way to fix council's problem is for council to enforce compliance upon the consent holder, including remedying the unlawful non-complying works and the design, or providing compliance itself. That's the corollary position as advised by our lawyer Hans van Straven to the council. That if council refuses to enforce compliance upon the consent holder, they then step into the consent holder's shoes and have to provide that themselves as well as enforcement of it. Now, no one above the wrongdoing staff will meet me. That factually elevates theirs and the council's wrongdoings and the willful blindness to high authorities. That's unfortunate to give our endless attempts to meet to assist the council to resolve its problems. No one will meet us. The General Manager won't, the Chief Executive won't, the Deputy Mayor won't, and the Mayor won't.
Thank you. Your time's up.
What I would say is that the new elected council need to fix this culture in the staff, that they cover up their wrongdoing. They have a policy of not allowing it.
Thank you.
The policy of the council, and it's that allows requires them to protect the staff, is actually helping the staff cover their mistakes.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, everyone. Good luck with the elections, and I'll see you next year.
Thank you. There are no deputations by appointment, no presentation of petitions. I'd like to move that we include the supplementary reports in the meeting agenda. Do I have a seconder for that? Phil Clearwater. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And we move now on to the next item on the agenda, which is governance matters. And if we turn to item 5 on the agenda, and it would be helpful if I had the open agenda open. And item 5, governance matters. Sorry, I keep opening the supplementary agenda for some reason. There. Right. So, and these. This is a standard documentation. It asks us to receive the information and report. It authorises the Chief Executive to make decisions essentially in the interregnum, to authorise the Chief Executive to sign off the main contract for Linwood Pool, should that be required in the interregnum, and that committees, subcommittees, etc. are not discharged on the coming into the office of the members of the council elected or appointed at or following the October 2019 triennial general elections. So I think I've just summarised that. It's a standard procedure, so I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Oh, yes, please ask a question.
Yeah, look, just on the Linwood Pool contract, I mean, one of the reasons that we put into the resolution that it should be approved by the Chair and Deputy Chair of Finance and Performance, obviously for a reason, so that at least there was some governance eyes over the top of the contract. And I don't see why suddenly there's going to be, what, a 3-week, 4-week period? Why suddenly this contract needs to get signed in a period where council is not around? Unless there's some extremely good reason as to why that should be the case.
Right.
And even if you need, you don't have to have a formal council meeting, so you've only really got a tiny gap, because by October the 12th you'll know who, you know.
No, we'll have to get the official results.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right, well, what I'm saying is I don't think you should be signing the contract in this gap.
Is there any way that we could name Mr. Raf Manji, because we know that he is not going to be running for re-election?
I don't know about that, but I don't see why there needs to be a rush.
Just in terms of some governance oversight in the meantime, I mean, I just wonder whether that would assist, because it's really only if it requires us signing off prior to the establishment, because there is a formal council meeting. When's the council meeting to
it's the 24th, isn't it?
24th.
Yeah, so actually the council, we are still in business till the 12th of October.
Yes.
So we can review a contract
Yes, you
till
two are in place till
there's only a
the
2-week gap, so I don't see why you would have to sign the contract in that 2-week gap. It could come to if it needed to be signed, it could come to the first council meeting.
Okay, so is there a reason why it would be signed off in that 2-week gap?
The reason is the commitment we've given to the community and the community board to ensure that there's no delay. The reason that a delay may be possible, it's an unlikely chance, is that an interruption in signing the contract may interrupt preparations before the Christmas period, and it's that risk of delaying the project over a Christmas period that leads us to do that. The risk is small, and
12 days.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do it the week before. I mean,
It's
You're in a
essentially
rush.
12 days. It could be put on the agenda for the first
Although we wouldn't have a
council
chair of
meeting.
the finance
No, 'cause
committee
remember, it's
because we don't set up the committees for
it's not,
a month
meeting's
or
not
two.
required. It just needs to be looked over. That's all. So basically, it just has to be approved by the chair and deputy chair of finance.
But we won't have a
So no,
finance
we won't
committee.
have one by then.
Oh, look, this is
Yeah, we
just
don't have a
one
committee.
quick
That's it. But it's months before a committee gets set up.
No. We will establish the committees before the end of October, but
Whereas at the moment it's the chair and deputy chair of finance, given that we may not, by the 24th we wouldn't have the committees, could we say, or after the, change that so that it's after the election, it's the mayor and deputy mayor? If it needed to be,
there will be no deputy mayor appointed.
by the
either.
24th there would. So we're saying there's 12 days when there's no ability to, there's no ability to perform the role that the chair and deputy chair of finance currently would perform.
Yeah.
But there'll be a space in between the 24th, which is the inaugural meeting of the new council, at which time the mayor and deputy mayor will be known, before the establishment of the committees in the first meeting.
Deputy mayor will not be appointed before the 20th.
Could we delegate
Change
it?
it to the mayor. Change it to the mayor.
24th, sorry.
The mayor is
24th.
the mayor.
No, but
the mayor
on the
is,
Deputy mayor
24th.
will not be appointed till
And
the
there'll be the
24th.
No, but on the
It'll be
24th,
dawn by then too.
Could we delegate to
There
Mr
seems to be
Andrew
some
Turner and
confusion,
Mr
that's
Ref
all right.
Manji?
we'll just
Yeah.
say
Full
That's
stop.
right.
Done.
No.
I'd rather leave it with the chief executive. This council has committed to getting this pool underway, and I think that there's a risk potentially with a new council deciding not to do it
The chair
and not signing it off.
The chair of finance and performance, the reason we have established the finance and performance committee as a committee of the whole directly relates back to the signing off of contracts that haven't had that governance eye over them, and directly relates back to changes that were notified in terms of significant over expenditure.
Well, let me give you an example. The insurance contract that this council took into the earthquake was signed off by the CFO.
That's
Should have been
right.
signed off by 2 members, and it wasn't because the CEO didn't happen to be around. So it's just a.
No, the CEO was conflicted, so he
Well,
couldn't
yeah,
sign it. That's an outrage. I agree with you. That's an.
But it's not about the project. It's just looking at the contracts
just
and
the
making
process.
sure.
So
Yeah.
why, could we not do it noting that the incoming, because it will be Dawn Baxendale by then, should seek advice from the current chair of the Finance and Performance Committee?
Actually, you don't want to do. I would actually just change it to the mayor.
Yeah.
What? Because the mayor's in existence until the end of the term, and if the mayor wants to show it to an advisor, she can.
Yeah. I'll
Find
take
out though,
advice.
like the tenders have closed. Are we currently considering the tender evaluation? Like, where are we actually at with this project?
I can't answer that question
I mean, I think
without
that's
the
pretty
project manager
fundamental.
giving me
I think
advice
you're
on
right.
that.
Have you seen it?
No, I mean, like yeah. We're a council of joy today, aren't we? So
Yeah, I don't want to make a big deal.
we're a council of joy. So,
Yes.
we want to see progress on this
Peace.
project. And, let's get some information before we conclude the meeting today around exactly where it's at in the process so that we can be informed.
Okay, so I wasn't aware that this was going to be raised as an issue, and I do think that we do need to have a mechanism for ensuring that there is that oversight. So we did delegate this to the Finance and Performance Committee of the whole, and we are. The committees are not discharged on the coming into office of the members of the council elected or appointed. So,
Not an appendix,
eh?
There's an
No.
appendix,
It's the
so
one
finance
in the
performance is
attachment.
gone and stuff.
So, this delegate.
Those ones.
But so up until the 12th of October, it's the chair and deputy chair of finance and performance. Is that right? And
Yes.
so if it has to be signed off between
So, sorry, it's actually up until the time that the electoral officer gives the declaration of the final results. So that is usually up to a week after the 12th
Yes,
of
I
October.
understand that,
Yeah, so
but
there's still
could we,
that period.
could we possibly refer to the mayor-elect and the chief executive?
Well,
Yep.
well, could we just not, as you said, and we mentioned before, it's when the final results are coming in. That's only a matter of potentially a week. Do we really need to sign the contract in that week? Can we just not say the mayor?
No, we do not need to sign a contract in that week. We are merely doing what we said we'd do to try and remove any possible obstacles. We think the risk is small. The disruption would be small, but nevertheless, we're doing what we promised
So
to do.
and the last council agreed to, or asked for this, so.
So we could say the chief executive and the mayor.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, whoever the mayor is until.
Just so you're aware, the returns for the RFP close on October 17th.
Oh, well, we're not even close then. are we?
Second day.
I think the issue was that the previous delegation, or the current delegation at the moment, it refers to the subject to being approved by the chair and deputy chair of the Finance and Performance Committee of the whole. So those roles finish when those elected members leave office, because those committees are discharged, they're not carried over.
Yeah.
So once we get past that point, we don't have those two persons to approve the contract in terms of the current delegation. So if that's
Change it to the
So
mayor.
mayor and
It's easy.
deputy mayor.
Yeah.
so we could
Dear
change it
and
to,
deputy
we
mayor.
could insert
Yeah.
that.
So, but, hang on,
The contract's not going to be ready till Christmas, so I mean, you know.
I don't know how long does it take us this RFPs.
Oh, it will take some time.
yeah, but
Definitely be a mayor and
Yeah,
deputy
so it's not
mayor.
an issue, so, okay.
I'm
that's
just
why, That's why
confused.
I raised it. To just,
is Yanni right that it doesn't close till the 17th of October?
I don't have that information in front of me, and I'm not the project manager.
No,
So I can't tell you.
But my question would be, why is this in here if it's...
Because there won't be a chair of the finance
Correct.
committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're...
So we're going to put chair, we're going to put mayor and deputy mayor instead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Authorise
Okay,
the
sorted
mayor
that
and
out.
deputy mayor to sign off. Thank you, Raf. You've raised a very good point.
nothing to do with what I'm moving council.
Yeah.
Would be better to get a heads up and we could have found those
Okay,
dates.
good work, Yanni.
Right. Thank you very much, Raf, and thank you for the
Most
prior
welcome.
notification, so I could have helped resolve that ahead of the meeting. But anyway, I'm happy to move this, and do I have a seconder? David East. And is there any discussion? I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is, of course, the council's draft
Smart.
annual report for the year. And I'm just going to, open the supplementary agenda. Okay. Now, this has come through with recommendations from the Audit and Risk Management Committee, so could I invite Councillor Raf Manji to introduce the item?
Yes, well, this is a draft annual report which has come here for approval. The Audit and Risk Committee reviewed the process as required under its terms of reference to make sure that the appropriate checks have been done and the appropriate sign-offs have been made by staff, and that we have a confirmed letter from Audit New Zealand, which we do, and everything seems to be in order. It's a completely clean annual report with a clean audit opinion. So, yeah, I'm happy to hand over to Len if he wants to make any comments on it.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. The annual report, although I present it from the finance perspective, is a piece of work from the entire organisation. And at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting the other day, I reiterated the fact that the business units really do provide a lot of the information in this annual report. The group of activities section contains a lot of the information of what they do, how they do it, how they measure up against performance measures, and what they're going to be doing in the future and how much it costs, of course. So this is an entire piece of work. It starts off at about now for next year. So this is just a piece of work that we do. I mean, my thanks to all the business units for helping, CCHL and all their subsidiaries for providing the group results. And there's some pleasing group results going to have come out from CCHL. And in addition, Audit New Zealand for taking us through this journey once again. They come in early June, and they only just leave us now. So it's a journey and a half. So I'm pleased to present it. Diane Brandish, I'm sure if she was here, would say the same thing. It's a it's a monumental effort, and it's pretty good today. If I've got any questions on the content, I'd be happy to address them. Oh. That's on.
Andy Byrne.
A few words. Just to give you the assurance today, really, that the audit is complete. So when you adopt your annual report today, you are adopting it with a clean and unmodified opinion. So we will produce a report to governance shortly, and there'll be areas in there for focus for the future. But the main message to take away today is the annual report you adopt has a clean audit opinion in it. And that's all I'll say, Your Worship. Thanks.
Music to my ears.
Okay.
Thank you very much. As it is the organisation, I'm sure. Do we have any questions? Jimmy Chen.
Not sure. Based on the staff, or even from the Audit Risk Management Committee, particularly the paragraph the 4, you can see the Risk Management Committee. Paragraph 2 and 3 already, separate adopt this annual report and also receive independent audit report. But why we have the paragraph 4 combine these two different reports? It looks like a little bit duplicate this paragraph 4. Have you seen?
The thing for us is
why duplicate?
Sorry?
Why duplicate? We don't need a paragraph 4 because paragraph 2 and 3 already in here.
Through you, Chair, it's bringing the two previous points together.
We present the audit report. We present the audit report. We present the annual report. Audit New Zealand provides that the actual audit opinion. So the combined two documents form the final annual report. So when the representation letter is signed by council on behalf of council to Audit New Zealand, they're expressing the opinion that everything's been done in the correct methodology. So they don't normally produce that audit opinion until that is done. So it looks like it's a two-step process, but
yes,
we adopt the annual report without the audit opinion,
yeah.
As far as content's concerned and process, and then along comes the audit opinion and said, this is what you've done.
But content, no any difference in the right content. Yeah.
If you refer to number 8,
yes,
it says authorises, so the council
yes,
is being recommended to authorise the mayor and the acting chief executive to sign the statement of compliance, and also, sorry, can you scroll that up just a smidge? Oh no, I can do it off here. And
yes,
then the number 9 says authorises the mayor and acting chief executive to sign the Audit New Zealand letter of representation for the 2019 annual report.
yes,
so
yes,
it looks like it's a double up, but it isn't.
Yes.
It's two separate steps in a process,
yes,
that enables us to produce the annual report with the audit office report included.
okay.
It's optically difficult, but
yes,
it is absolutely correct process.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank
Good.
you.
Councillor Mangy, would you like to move
It's my pleasure to move this
the resolutions? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Would the Deputy Chair like to second that?
Happy to do so.
Andrew Turner, seconded. Is there any discussion? I expect there is, because Councillor Johansson, since which time, and I hope that actually the mover and seconder, I should have mentioned this before, a new item 10 agrees that future annual reports include an addendum on the progress of the formal annual plan resolutions and other actions. As part of the annual plan process, we always have a number of resolutions. When it comes to the annual report a year later, we actually want to reflect on how they have tracked as well. And it's just another check and balance in the system to make sure that we've progressed those items that we agreed to progress.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that, and we've also discussed having outstanding audit and risk items as well in the annual report, but we're going to discuss that with the chief executive, well, the new chief executive.
Right.
I'm not going, someone else. Yeah, so I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah, good. Okay, so is there any discussion on the annual report? Glenn?
Thank you. Would you like one aspect of it brought out then, such as housing? And
I'm very happy I'm very happy for the annual report to be the basis for councillors to reflect on the last year. That is what it's for.
I think there are a few highlights. I won't take too long, but just in the housing section, moving across that spectrum of housing in which we have a significant part, we undertook a street count over the Housing First chronic homeless project. We identified 200 people who needed housing, and nearly a quarter have been. So we're making good inroads, and that's down to people like Phil chairing the Champions Group and all the agencies working together. With our social housing, which is a significant part of this annual report, we began voluntary insulation before we were required to. All our units have been assessed, and those that are technically, but in my view, not morally exempt, the procurement process is underway to have those insulated. I can confirm that by May next year. So that's good news following that council resolution. Another, a kind of untold story is our new social housing builds exceed the Building Act requirement. So that default setting is actually Homestar 4. Our social housing units are Homestar 6. And they also have LifeMark accreditation by way of accessibility. We've done some other good things in there with the DC rebates for social housing that helped the social housing units on the marae at Aranui. That's worth $22,000 a unit. That's a significant amount of money. And the Hornby project with affordable housing and social has gone well as well. That came from a discounted land sale. It also has Abbeyfield, which is an outstanding model. Build Back Smarter, we obtained funding for that. That's now Healthy Homes Canterbury with ECAN. And it will come out soon, or Vicky will come back to haunt us, but the shared equity scheme as well. It comes out tomorrow. So we've done a lot of good things in housing, and I think those stories need to be heard as well. There are residents now living a lot more comfortably with well-insulated units, and it's been a struggle, but we've got these old and colds from the 70s, and we have to get them sorted, and I'm confident that we will. So I just wanted to highlight that. We're doing a lot of good stuff there.
Pauline?
Yes, I'd just like to highlight a couple of things too. One of them being Sumner Road completion, which was in actual fact an incredibly challenging and very, very dangerous project with health and safety records supreme, and on time and on budget, and also the New Brighton Pier, which I think was in this year, which was another really incredibly challenging project. But also looking at I think the achievements of the Land Drainage Recovery Program. It's not super sexy, but really it's an incredible program. I really have to give big ups to Keith Davison for heading that. Delivering projects on time and on budget as well. We had the Bells Creek opening, which was flood mitigation and water improvement with a new filter down there to filter the water going through into the Heathcote. The Land Drainage Recovery Program uses the 6 values for water improvement, which is ecology, landscape, recreation, heritage, culture and drainage. And we can see evidence of that when we see the waterways opening up. We're just reversing the old way of piping our waterways and opening them up into beautiful open waterways now, which are landscaped, protecting the ecology while we're doing that work, putting in those little eel homes and things to protect them. So I think that's really amazing. And also the urban forests that are being planted in flood basins. So we've got Linwood, we've got the Cranford Basin, And we've got a lovely little area there along QE2 Drive by Philpotts Road. I encourage everyone to walk through there. It's just beautiful. We've also got the massive work on the flood storage basins in the Upper Heathcote there. So we've got the Curlett's Basin, Sutherland's and Eastman's Basin, and those multi-million-dollar projects which will reduce the flooding in the Heathcote by 50%. The flood intervention policy has been really successful, with obviously the Flockton first, but now the Heathcote's been attended to, with homes that we can't protect the water coming up into their homes, so offering them a buyout because that's the right thing to do. So I'm quite proud of the work that the team has done there as well. So I think really we do have to recognise that program. Also the Drinking Water Improvement Program, a big ups to Helen Beaumont. We've got a $38 million a year being spent on that at the moment to bring our infrastructure up to standard so that we can apply for an exemption if there was a mandatory instruction to chlorinate our water. I'm very proud of the work that's been done there and escalated through our LTP. So thank you.
Andrew and Anne Galloway.
Thank you. It's good to hear colleagues referring to certain aspects of this report that really show the progress that's been made in the last year, and in fact the progress that's been made in this term of council. I'll keep my comments at a reasonably high level. There were a couple of questions, one of which I asked and the other of which was answered for me without the need to ask the question at the Audit and Risk Management Committee. One of which was on page 17 of the summary, why we are highlighting work that is not council's work, but is work either that council's doing in partnership with Otakaro or work that Otakaro is doing. And that's really painting a picture of progress in the city, and there's quite a lot of this annual report that actually does that. We've been very proud as a council to see Turanga, our new central library, not only opened looking way better than even the very impressive plans showed that it would, but then the very positive commentary on Turanga that's happened since then as well. And it's great to see on that page 17 that I referred to other projects that represent significant progress, like the convention centre and the Metro Sports facility referred to there as well. So there's certainly a picture been painted in this report of significant progress in the last year and in this term of council being pointed out through the central city. I mean, this and the city in general, this really points out where we've been, and also points out some of the challenges as to where we're going and matters that the new council will need to pick up. That critical mass of 20,000 residents in the central city, the need for a continued focus on central city vibrancy and economic success, and calling that out not only for the central city, but also for suburban centres where a continued focus is required as well. So I think this is a good report. I think it tells a good story at a high level of where we've been, and I think it calls out some of the challenges that the new council will need to pretty much immediately confront quite well in its narrative as well. Thanks to everybody that's been involved in its preparation.
Anne Galloway.
I think it's good to stop and to celebrate success. I mean, often we get tied down in what is not happening and what we're perhaps not doing. This is an extensive record of what we have done and what we have achieved, and I think we need to take a moment to celebrate that and to feel proud, actually, as an organisation. I certainly do feel proud to be working alongside people who are so passionate and committed to making the city, well, best little city in the world. So there are a couple of things that I wanted to point out. I think the numbers that are visiting and enjoying our galleries and our parks, reserves, all our facilities, those that are enjoying the events that we put on, we are building a strong, connected community. I would like to particularly call out the satisfaction, the 100% satisfaction rating for education programs that our council runs. That's hugely worth celebrating. And I'd like to acknowledge the staff that work on that team and the fantastic work they do. There is work to be done. I see that 32% of respondents don't understand how council makes decisions. I mean, that's a challenge for us, particularly as we see as we're coming towards an election. That's really not good enough. We need to do more in that field, I believe. But let's just take a moment and celebrate what we've achieved.
Sarah Templeton.
Thank you. The city is much like the human body. So for the most part, you don't really notice the amazing things that it does. It just gets on with its day-to-day, gets on with the things it needs to do, gets you around the place. And all the focus tends to go on a small area when something goes wrong, when your shoulder or your knee goes, or your wellheads. And so most of the time, the council does a whole pile of amazing stuff. And I think it's really good to reflect on that at the end of a year and at the end of a term. And in the last year, we've seen the opening of Turanga, the reopening of the Town Hall, the opening of Te Ora QE2, the opening of Ngā Sports Complex for athletics, hockey, tennis and league, the opening of the new whale pool and playground in New Brighton, almost completing the New Brighton hot saltwater pools, the Avon or Takaro River Corridor regeneration plan's been signed off. We've got the repair and the reopening of the old stone house, new delegations to community boards and the partnership governance agreement, stormwater detention basins for Heathcote River, dredging and bank stabilisation, the Bells Creek pump station in Linwood, or Parapara native forest and flood detention in Linwood, opening of the new Woolston Library, restoration and reopening of Rising Home Community Centre, Te Ana Marina open in Littleton, signs of the Kiwi in Takahe, Rose Chapel, Nurses Memorial Chapel, St Albans Pavilion, St Albans Community Centre scope approved and procurement underway, the resolution of the Taylor's Mistake Batches licensing issue after 30 years, opening of Sumner Road, Riccarton Community Centre almost finished, Bishopdale Library and Community Centre repaired and reopened, the site and concept design for the Linwood Pool signed off and procurement underway, site for the Southwest Leisure Centre chosen, and the global settlement signed off. We've done resurfaced in the last year 55k of roads, 25k of footpaths, and we've done about 10k's of cycleways. Our wellhead repair program is almost complete, and we've planted 29,000 trees and plants with volunteers, had 15,000 hours of graffiti removal volunteers, and the list goes on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? David?
Thanks. I'd just like to emphasise some of the points that have been made by previous speakers, and particularly acknowledge from my ward the satisfaction of seeing Te Ora QE2 open and running, the two new high schools up and running, and significant development on the hot water pools. From my point of view, they've been particularly satisfying. However, in that part of town, and I'm sure in others, there is still quite a concern about our roading in the city and the prioritisation of roading repairs. In the new term, I would really like to see a definite reprioritisation of some of the repairs we do. And for example, yes, I've had to front a few candidates meetings lately, and for me, you know, you get hammered about the level of roading repairs, and I walk out of council yesterday or the day before, and Hereford Street's been completely resealed. I wandered over and Cashel Street's been completely resealed. And yet, you know, we struggle to get some of our priority roading work done in other parts of the city. You know, Bradshaw Terrace keeps coming up time and time again, and I can name a number of them. So that's something that I think we really need to address in the incoming term. For me, the other significant project, and I'd like to acknowledge a lot of the work that has been achieved in terms of some of the coastal work around the estuary in this term. But I think going forward, and I've said this to members of my community, I think that one of the significant projects going forward is actually the coastal hazards chapter, and how we address climate change and how we produce adaptive management solutions to things going forward. And I think that's going to be one of the most challenging things going forward, and I do honestly hope that we look at these sort of things in a practical and adaptive manner, because it's going to be a huge part of our life going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else? Yanni?
Excuse me. Just wanted to highlight one of the key decisions we made from the 1st of July 2018, and that was for the free swimmings for parents and their caregivers and green prescription. So basically during school hours at any Christchurch City Council pool, preschoolers under 5 and one caregiver and those with green prescription would get free access to our pools, 9 to 3 p.m. on school days. Obviously the weekends, public holidays and school holidays were excluded, but the staff have just emailed the figures around to us, and we had over 28,000 people take advantage of that. And I think, you know, it's really good to see. Over 11,000 caregivers, over 13,000 preschoolers, and over 3,500 green prescription. So, you know, I think that's a really positive thing that we've achieved through this our swimming and recreation. And I just wanted to acknowledge the staff for that. But obviously that was a governance decision. But it is good to get that information, and I think we should celebrate making sport and recreation more accessible, especially to that age group and to those people with green prescriptions. It's a really good news story.
Anyone else? Jimmy Chen, sorry, I did see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, but generally speaking, my view, you know, this term the council have done the greater job.
It's just the year.
Yeah.
Just the year.
This year, I understand. Yeah, this year. Also, you know, my role is particular. Is the kind of the council for Hornby, local one. You know, I'm very, very happy. The council, particular in response to the wider the Hornby the community, you know, we secured those the budget on our long-term plan and the annual plan. Particular focus on the new Hornby library service center, and also Southwest you know this leisure center. That's fantastic, and also aware. Actually, back to December last year, council already adopted the Kai'o Park will be built this new facility. That's one local one. But regarding to the other citywide, you know, I'm the chair of the council's the multicultural subcommittee. Actually, that's very good celebration. You will review in August last year. Actually, we have 1 year anniversary celebration for our launch, the multicultural strategy, and also the back to even the couple of days ago, you know, we also to adopt implementation plan of this the multicultural strategy. And also back to the August last year, we received the Community Excellence Award because we are the first Metro City Council we launched this the multicultural strategy. So I'm very proud, but I strongly believe our city also very proud because this city, this community is multi-ethnic, multicultural community. Give everyone equally, you know, have a feeling of this city, the community, of the feeling of a sense of safety and also sense of belonging. And also this is council commitment, give every person equally access council's services, resources, as well as participating in the council's decision-making process. So I'm very proud to be a member of the, you know, this council team. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I let Ref close off the debate on the annual plan, I'll just, there are a few things that I wanted to mention. First of all, obviously the tragic events of the 15th of March. I mean, I guess that I'm the same as everyone else around the city, that it's actually hard to believe that something like that happened in our city. But I'm just constantly uplifted when I think of the response, you know, the response of both central government, our local community, and how they all came together. The We Are One, the symbolism of We Are One became very much the reality, and it's something that I think enables me. And I keep touching this. It was a gift to me from one of the people who was shot, and it is my name in Arabic, and you know, it is this feeling of support that enabled us to get through, but to acknowledge again the leadership of the our Muslim communities who spoke of peace, love, and forgiveness, the capacity for forgiveness that was a powerful message that resonated across the world. But I wanted to take this opportunity in the annual plan, and I have done so, to record in our message at the beginning of it the incredible response of the staff of the Christchurch City Council. The people who worked on the burials, the people who organised the call to prayer in a high-risk security environment 1 week after the shootings, and then the remembrance service 1 week after that. An extraordinary effort. And then just last week, I think, or a week before, the tributes of Aroha, and the incredible work done by our Botanic Garden staff and treating with such empathy the tributes that were laid by so many in response to what occurred, and the international response to that display of unity, compassion, love and kindness. And there is more work to be done as a city to make sure that we are one becomes very much the symbol of who we are in the future. The loss of secure status on Coronation came to its head with, to its wellhead with the $35 million wellhead upgrade program, which Councillor Cotter's already mentioned, and the progress that we are able to report is that with the UV plant being signed off on Monday in time for the water safety plan and the wellhead upgrade system, that everything that staff undertook to have completed by the end of September will be completed. And if it weren't for a change in the approach with the Ministry of Health, we would be in a position to take the chlorine out of our water on Monday. But the water safety plan will be submitted on Monday, and we will consider that. So I just want to alert councillors that although this is the last notified meeting of the council, we may in fact have an extraordinary meeting just simply to enable a public reporting of the water safety plan and the proposals going forward. But there is still work being done on that, with one more, I think, peer review due to come in. But I wanted to acknowledge the incredible work that has been done in that place. I listed some of the openings that I've attended by going through my mayoral reports. The Rose Historic Chapel, Hoyts, Entex and Tūranga opening in October. The recognition of the Avon Heathcote Estuary Ihutai as a flyway site network site, which is a site of ecological significance in international terms. Te Ana Marina opening in Littleton, the Time Ball opening, they're not all ours, Promenade opening, the official opening of the first OCHT housing since they took over in 2016, the health precinct opening of Manawa. I was going to mention the Christchurch Outpatients building, but I thought better of it. The opening of the Christchurch Town Hall, the Ngāpunawai Sports Hub official opening, the opening of Sumner Road, the first UC graduation ceremony in the Town Hall since the earthquakes, and they were engineers. I just thought that was so utterly appropriate. Dress for Success back into the central city once more with their opening of their new facility. Wigram School opening, Rising Home Homestead reopening, launch of the Canterbury Earthquake Insurance Tribunal, the Night Stream School opening, the first refugees to arrive post-earthquake as part of the Refugee Resettlement Program, Te Korowai Presbyterian Support Upper South Island opened, the opening of Lumiere cinemas at the Arts Centre, citizenship ceremonies back in the Town Hall, the Dementia Prevention Research Centre opened in the Health Precinct, the opening of UCSA, the Student Association at the University of Canterbury, Haereroa, the Air Ambulance Helicopter Service opening, the St Vincent de Paul's in Papanui opening, the opening of the CSO Centre, the Christchurch Town Hall. In fact, I've gone beyond the financial year, so under question. But I think the point that I want to make is that there has been such significance, and of course, Pauline Cotter spoke to Bells Creek completion, the Gardners Road pump stations, the Dudley Creek work completed, and of course the radio frequency identity tagging of wheelie bins of 95% complete, and $61.2 million in subsidy from NZTA, which enabled such a significant amount of city street maintenance and new work to be done. So and major cycleway routes that have been completed in the year as well. So there has been a considerable amount of work, and I know that we can focus on the gaps and what remains to be done, but there has been considerable progress made, and there have been a number of challenges thrown at the city as a whole, and I think that the city has responded incredibly well. So if I could hand over to you, Ref, just to close off the debate on the annual plan, annual report.
Annual report, exactly. The annual plan is next year.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just acknowledge also what you said in terms of the council's reaction and support after the 15th of March attacks. It was exceptional, and the community is still very grateful for that. And you'd have to say this has to be probably the best prepared council for disasters, since we seem to deal with one almost every year. This term, I think we had the Port Hill fires.
Yes, Port Hill.
Kaikoura, you know, so
2014.
Port Hill fires,
15.
Kaikoura earthquake, you know, so. But it's just another example of how the council, as the representative of the community, does respond, you know, to challenges and issues that are happening. So that should be noticed. And even just the issues raised around, you know, communities that might be marginalised. We talk a lot about diversity, but the inclusion piece is very important as well. And I think that is something that we will need to be addressed in the future. But look, getting back to more mundane matters, the financial result this year was very good for the council, which we notified last month. And the group report, because the annual report is a group report, as Len noted, which includes all of the council family. And, you know, we spent $1.6 billion last year. Now, that's a lot of firepower in terms of spending that's going into our local economy. We've seen a new procurement plan come, so that can be targeted, and there's lots of opportunities there. Total group assets are up to $15 billion, which is, you know, pretty exceptional. And net assets of nearly 11 billion. So the council is in an extremely good financial shape and has choices. And as somebody mentioned before, you know, the challenge, I think, for the next council is really getting the prioritisation process and approach more streamlined, so that the citizens can participate in that and have more input into the direction of spend. The internal audit process is going really well, and is the back end of the internal engine of council. And I'd like to thank Audit New Zealand for their work in helping us become a better council in terms of financial reporting and performance, because this is the platform from which the front end is delivered. It's not the fancy stuff, but it's very important. This is the 6th annual report that I've sat over, and it's a completely clean opinion, which is something that's taken us a long time to get to. So congratulations to all the staff working on that. It has been a very challenging time, and actually financial reporting is one of those things which doesn't really come up in terms of disasters and lessons learned, but actually you can't spend money that you don't have, and it's very difficult to direct spending when you don't know what your financial position is. So it's a very important part of running a good organisation and providing the services to the community. So congratulations to everyone, and I'm happy to move this report be accepted.
Right, it's been moved and seconded. I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried. Next item is just the signing off of the Audit and Risk Management Committee minutes. Ralph, would you like to move
happy
that?
to move
Seconded
those.
by Andrew. Put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried. Now we move on to the hearings panel report to the council. Oh, and thank you both very much for both the presentation but the preparation that's gone into this. We know how hard people have worked, and all of the council units that have fed into the work that has been done. Thank you very much. The hearings panel report to the council on the Te Waiora Otane draft integrated water strategy. The chair of the hearings panel was Councillor Jani Hansen, and I would invite you to introduce the report. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Can I just first off by thanking and acknowledging my fellow panel members, Councillor Sarah Templeton and Councillor Phil Clearwater, and also just to acknowledge our staff. I'm just looking if they're not quite here, so I don't know if we want to invite them or if they're on the way, or whether people can we can just move on with it. But really, you know, this is a pretty fundamental change to how we've been doing things, and I think that's quite significant. The key thing is that although we didn't get a lot of submissions, we actually got a lot of quality submissions. So people are really concerned about our water, as you can expect. They're really excited about us taking a much more holistic approach to how water is managed, so that we can get the best outcomes. And so really, I just want to go through the key points around the hearings panel's deliberation and where we've got to. The first thing is that we really have changed the start of the vision, and it's really just a very basic statement, but we've changed it to water is a valued taonga in all that we do, because we felt that simplicity of expression around how much we treasure our water is really fundamental, and I think that's a really significant point. There's a number of changes that we've made that address very specific submissions, but Goal 4 really, I think, really goes to the crux of why we need an integrated strategy, and that is looking at managing our assets across all of council activities, such as roading, water supply, wastewater, stormwater operations, and parks. We're really talking about having a lot more synergy so that we can get the best outcomes for water. There's a number of other things, I think, just to highlight several of those. One, the hearings panel was really keen to ensure that we actually develop the implementation plans, because that's really the key of what we're going to do. But it's really important we have tools, measures, indicators that show progress towards what we're trying to achieve. That was really clear from the hearing panel. And related to that, we also discussed and supported the need to include a way in which we can have community forums. We can have ways in which people can come together across the city from a variety of different fields and stakeholders and public to talk about the water issues. We saw that as being really, really critical. And I'd like to acknowledge Carolyn Potter as a member who made a submission in that regard to say we needed to make sure that people were really aware of water and greater than what we had in the strategy. Just two other quick things. One is a lot of discussion about incentivising rainwater reuse and use of grey water. So again, these will be things that are considered in the implementation plan. And of course, just making sure that the strategy aligns with the new changes to the old Local Government Act 2002, which is around those 4 well-beings, which you all will be aware of. So in conclusion, I do want to promote the integrated water strategy for adoption. What's really clear through the city is that there's a number of amazing people, community groups, individuals across organisations who do value our water and are working really hard to achieve that. And I think this is part of council lifting its game in that regard. So in conclusion, the key features: water is a precious taonga and deserves to be protected as such. The council's committed to removing the temporary chlorination as soon as possible, and we see that the future water supply network is able to be administered without the need for residual disinfection. That council is deeply concerned about the potential impact of nitrate levels that are being set across the region, as they are not strict enough to provide confidence that future water supply will be protected, and we will do whatever we need to make sure that they are. And finally, a more integrated approach needed to improve water quality, address invasive weeds, and reduce the stormwater, wastewater overflows. So I really welcome this coming to council today. I think all those that have been involved, I'll now hand over for others who may wish to speak.
Well, first of all, Yanni, could you just, I know that there's been a little bit of work done on some additional text to be covered off in the resolution. Would you like to just touch on those two items there, or? Because I'm going to invite Diane Schellander to come to the table, because obviously Diane's just done a tremendous amount of work in the behind the scenes, and so I would like her to be here for this moment, but also to answer any questions that colleagues might have. But would you like to just talk to those two?
Well, I think the key thing is really just in the executive summary, we've got a number of goals, and we're really just strengthening some of those goals around the points that I was just raising before, and that is making sure that we have integrated approach, and also the fact that we do see ātitanga as being really important, the way in which we look after the water as a city. And so what we're really saying is we do believe that local people should be in control of water, given how precious it is. So that's A. In terms of B, that's just reinforcing the concern about that both the nitrates issue, to say that we will do as much as we can in terms of advocacy and action to protect our water supply from nitrates, and also that, again, just reaffirming our absolute commitment that we see that the water network does not need to have residual disinfection, e.g. chlorine, because we believe that we can provide a safe drinking water supply network for all without that. So that's really the substance of the changes. They're more probably not technical in nature, but they're more just emphasising and strengthening some of the things that are already in the strategy further on in the document, but putting them right at the front.
Lovely, thank you. So has any, well, you're going to move it, and Phil wants to second it. So are there any questions for Diane? Well, that's a very good sign. It's been moved and seconded, so I'll open it up for debate then. Phil.
Dan, I'm very happy to support this, and including the additional work that has been done recently, and we've got up there as additional recommendations, really. And I certainly join Yanni in thanking Diane for huge work. Also the people who made submissions on this really important part of our work and future work. And the goals, you know, are really clear, and not only in the document, but in terms of what we're signing off today. And there's a couple in particular I just want to stress, and Yanni has referred to issues around the quality of water in the source and also the reticulation. And that, of course, is just so important, that we make sure that the source and the reticulation system, that they're protected and enhanced, so in fact they are safe for health and they're sustainable. A key part of that, I think, that we need to keep an eye on is how we make sure we keep on cleaning up our urban waterways, that we don't just say, look, it is all in the wider catchments. And we've done full credit to our land drainage working group and the work that's been done there already, and the establishment of the retention basins, which will catch a lot of that silt, which actually contains a lot of the contaminants, we know that. And also the different stormwater filter filters that have have been put in place, and the different wetlands, which of course will absorb a lot of that. So really supporting those often community-led initiatives too around that is really important, an important part of this integrated strategy. And the other part too, though, is, I guess, making sure that we continue, the last goal being we manage this in a sustainable and integrated way, and as a principle of kaitiaki. So making sure, in fact, we look hard at the regional land and water plan and the Canterbury water management strategy, so we make sure we do get better outcomes than we currently have, because we know that the measurements we are seeing are all cumulative, and we have to address those both in the quantity, particularly in the quantity, and we know about the quality as well. So I'm sure that councillors will support this today. There's been a lot of work gone into it.
Pauline and then Andrew.
Yeah, I agree with everything Phil said. This is an amazing piece of work, and my only question for Diane might have been how long has you been working on it, but I think it's many months. And I do want to really recognise Diane for the incredible work she does in this organisation. She's one of those quiet achievers in the background, but your knowledge and your discipline with many submissions that you work on with us and for us are incredible. Also our link with the Christchurch West Melton, Zone Committee is incredible, so you bring that knowledge across both organisations as well. And, you know, the work that's happening in both this organisation and with the Zone Committee, I mean, they've got the sedimentation toolbox now, which helps particularly with construction on the Port Hills of any housing, that there are strict codes of compliance to stop any sediment coming down into our waterways, particularly the Heathcote, but those rules apply to all construction sites now, which is a really big move in my view. But also what this integrated strategy tells us is that this organisation has the skills and the talent and the knowledge and the ability to continue to deliver our three waters in-house. We have got incredible talent here. We recognised right across New Zealand and internationally on the work that we've done with the land drainage recovery program and the stormwater projects that we do. People come here to find out how we deliver these things. Our investigative teams do incredible work, and I'm very proud of this organisation and the talent that I can see in here. So thank you for all the work on this, Diane, and for the working group as well, the hearings panel. Thank you.
Sorry, there was somebody else. Andrew, and then Anne.
Thank you. Water's certainly a hot topic at the moment, and I think it's very timely that we have completed the work that this document represents, which is an integrated, joined up and strategic approach to a number of aspects of water. I certainly support the additional wording which is contained within this resolution. The expectation is that chlorine will be a short-term issue, but the knowledge is that nitrate incursion, unless we do something about it, will be a long-term issue, and they're both things that it's clear that this council, and I would expect future council, is taking very, very seriously. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank and congratulate Diane and the team on a piece of work well done, particularly engagement with stakeholders. I thought was excellent. I attended a stakeholder session some time ago where members of the Zone Committee were present, and that certainly represented a really good and well-informed conversation, and I can see aspects of those sort of conversations reflected in this final document. So thank you very much indeed for a piece of work well done. My hope is that this document influences in reality the way that council works and the way that council thinks. There will be a very good opportunity coming up in the next few months when we consider wastewater and the opportunity for beneficial reuse of wastewater. So what we're saying is that water is precious and water is valuable, rather than seeing wastewater as a burden that needs to be got rid of. When we look at some options for the Akaroa wastewater scheme in the new term of council, we will be able to see opportunities for the beneficial reuse of wastewater in one of the parts of the city where drinking water is constrained because of the water supply there, and it's my hope that this work will influence the way that we think about real life problems like the ones that we will be talking about in Akarai.
Anne. Thank you again for the work that you've done, and it's just reminding us that we are all one, and that we all need water, and that it is our taonga, and this is all about us taking up our role as stewards of this taonga. And that lovely Māori word, kai takianga, which I can never say, which is about...
Kaitiaki tanga.
Yes, it's actually more than looking after something. It's actually leaving it in a better state than what we found it. And I think that this document is all about that. So thank you for the work that you've done. And I particularly like that comment that we are adamant about the chlorination situation, and the fact that we have got to get that statement to our residents that we're making a firm stand on. That's really good. Thank you.
Vicky?
Yeah, I like the fact that these things have been summarised, and I think it was important that we did that, because I don't think that people necessarily read an entire strategy document, and I can understand why they don't do that. I think there are probably 3-4 things coming at the new council that will be substantial, or maybe this council on Monday, in terms of chlorination and the current, what the Ministry of Health is doing. That will be a big one. I think it's really important that our views are known. The nitrates will come at the new council, and hopefully ECAN will be sufficiently changed in outlook and resolution and determination to do something about nitrates that this council won't need to get involved, but whatever happens, it has to happen incredibly quickly, because what we're doing is taking an incredibly rare, pure water source, and what ECAN's plan change does is actively destroy it. So you haven't got time to waste on that one, and you need to act. You have the consideration that was going to come to this meeting but is going to November, of the water conservation order for those aquifers coming in November. I think probably you need to do it, even though it's a long process, and I think everything that we can do, and I think that's what the statement says about protecting our source water, is really, really important. The other issue that's going to come at the new council is the government's planned changes in relation to the structure of the three waters, where we know that some of the smaller councils around the South Island in particular cannot afford to do the wastewater, stormwater and drinking water that they need to, and the planned government solution seems to be that that would be a really good idea to hook them in with large rate-paying bases such as the Christchurch City Council, so that we could pay for all the wastewater that's required in the West Coast, for example, and a lot of other smaller authorities. It is a really, really dumb idea on so many levels, because the idea of taking stormwater, wastewater and drinking water out of the control of the local council means that nobody can actually look in the eye of the people who are making the decisions about their water and tell them what they think. And it is so fundamental to the purpose of local government that to set up a separate authority and take it out of the council would just be horrible. So for goodness sake, don't let that happen either. I would also like to say thank you to Di. I think when we first came on council, poor Di had to write the very fast submissions on the stopping the oil drilling off the Canterbury coast. I don't think she's stopped since. So thanks, Di. Thank you. Any others? Glenn Livingston.
Yeah, thank you. Just reflecting on water, for some time, a recent New Zealand Prime Minister said no one owns water. Now, all right, that's a statement which seems to have not really been challenged much, but I think the key thing coming through here is simply what's been referred to, kaitiakitanga. I mean, when you look at all these pieces here over chlorine, nitrate incursion, the regulatory environment, this is what it's about. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the right question to ask? Who owns the water? It's about instead asking, we all have a responsibility over the water, and thrilled to see this big overarching piece of work coming through. It's very significant, and it will be, as Vicky's outlined, for the next council.
Well, before I hand over to you, Yanni, I just want to say that, actually really to follow on from what Councillor Livingston just said, the fact that the government hasn't addressed the issue of the ownership of the water is actually one of the challenges that we face as a city, because we have such a precious aquifer beneath our city, which, for a whole lot of reasons, I might as well just say, because I really agree that we are adamant that we can achieve the objective of delivering safe water while ensuring that our community health remains our top priority. We're adamant that we can achieve that objective without residual disinfection. There is no need to add residual disinfection, and there has been no need to do so. But we've been required to do so as a reaction to what happened in Havelock North, when over 5,000 people got very sick, and a small number of people actually, their deaths were associated with what happened there as well. Could what happened at Havelock North happen in Christchurch? Well, when you looked at why it happened in Havelock North, no, wouldn't have happened here. We don't have wellheads with sort of stock in the neighbouring field doing what stock we don't have stock wandering around doing what stock do into waterways, and we check all of our wellheads and switch them off in storm events that we know are coming. So we had a water safety plan. They didn't. I can go through the list of things that went wrong in Havelock North and wouldn't have gone wrong here. So we know we can do this. We're in a risk-averse environment. We can't get engineers. We couldn't get engineers to sign off on wellheads. We've got engineers signing off on our wellheads now, and that gives me great confidence, and that's why I can say we're adamant that we can achieve the objective. But if the government would address the issue of the ownership of the water, then we could address issues like water bottling. We could address those big issues that actually perplex our city. They can't for a minute understand why we're chlorinating our water supply when it seems that we're allowing access to our pristine aquifer by those who will put it into plastic and ship it overseas. It's, and so as soon as the government is able to deal with that challenge, I think that the country as a whole will find a better way forward. But I also wanted to thank Diane for her incredible work. I don't know how long you've worked for the council for, but just the extraordinary amount of patient and detailed analysis and work that you have done for us on submission after submission after submission, and all of the work that you've helped contribute to helping us understand issues like nitrate incursion, which I'm glad to see called out here as well, and that sort of the preciousness of our water and how we need to protect it. So thank you. You've done a great service for our city. We don't often get the chance to call that out in a public environment, but I call it out for you. You've done an extraordinary job, and I know you've got a team of people around you, probably not big enough, but for the amount of work that you've done for us, but really for the city as a whole, thank you very much. Yanni, I'll let you close off the debate.
Thank you. Some of the more interesting submissions, and I think this is really a watershed moment for us as a city and a region, talked around the use of water, exploiting water for economic development. And just to borrow the words of someone who is quite well known at the moment, Greta Thunberg, she said at the UN just recently, "My message is that we'll be watching you." And then she goes on to say, "Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We're in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?" And when you reflect on that and reflect on the history of Canterbury in the last at least 2 decades that I'm aware of, with the idea of increased irrigation for economic development, the massive increase in the number of cows that we've seen across the Canterbury Plains, and the benefits to whom and the cost to future generations with the potential for the nitrates, it is really, really concerning. And I think this strategy is part of us saying collectively, we are not just going to promote the economic well-being of the region and allow our water to be exploited to do so. So there's a number of things in here which I think will give us greater awareness, but also a greater call to action to really challenge the idea that that people can just exploit water for economic gain without any environmental risk. Of course, that then falls to future generations and possibly quite likely to the current generation. There is an irony, of course, that today we've just seen the huge headline around the losses that Fonterra has piled up around dairying. And I think, you know, there's certainly this strategy is a much better approach of balancing the cultural, the economic, the environmental, and the social well-being of our community. But I do think the overriding principle is that as local people, we deserve to be in control of our water. That is such a treasure, and it is priceless in terms of looking after it. And we are absolutely committed to doing so. So I just, in conclusion, hope that we adopt this unanimously. It's got a lot of really good things in it. It is a statement about our position collectively as a city, about how we're going to improve, but also to safeguard our water. And I really just commend you all to endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you. I will put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Yes, it was passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much, Diane. Thank you. Right, so I think we're at the morning tea adjournment, is that right? Yes, so we'll adjourn for morning tea and what, 15 minutes? So that would be 25 minutes past 11. We'll make it 11:30. Just come back at 11:30. Yep. Move on to the Mayor's monthly report, and we've got that's on the supplementary agenda. There are 2 months. As this is the last scheduled meeting. Sorry, I can't seem to open. Awesome. Right. So, okay, well, these cover August and September. So there were a number of events that happened in August that I've called out here. The opening of the UCSA building. We used to call it the Studis building when I was at university. I studied formally CAF 101, as we used to call it back in the day. Spent a lot of time in the cafeteria, and it was certainly a centre of student activity back in the day. It will be more than that now. It is an extraordinary building, so I know that a number of us got the opportunity to have a look through it before it officially opened. And but the opening was fantastic. The new Nyamarsh Theatre was great, and it was great to see the names that were previously associated with the Student Union building, including Bentley the cat. Bentley ran for student president one year, as I recall, so it really is a community asset as well. So that was great. The launch of the South Island Air Ambulance helicopter service by the Minister of Health was actually a great opportunity to look at GCH Aviation. They're an outstanding local firm. Started off with 1 helicopter in New Brighton as Garden City Helicopter Tours, and now it's this extraordinary service that provides Westpac Rescue Helicopter and New Zealand Flying Doctors Services, but it is also facilitating the arrival and departure of private jets. It's quite an interesting firm, so I certainly would recommend councillors to go for a visit. The Curry family, I know, would welcome you. It is a family firm that has started up and really expanded, but they really do have a commitment to the wider South Island as well. The ASEN's Innovation Awards dinner was fantastic to see Tūranga recognised again and receive another award, the Special Community Award for the people of Christchurch, which was fantastic to see, but also Lewis Bradford receiving an award for the structural design of Tūranga, and that's what's represented there. Wainoni Avonside Community Services Trust, I've got a special place in my heart for that, because I was their MP for a number of years. People like Betty Chapman are just the salt of the earth and the rock upon which community is built. She is an extraordinary human being. That building, sadly, was at the end of its life. They couldn't invest in it after it was red zoned, essentially. They've sold the building, and so this was their final day of events there. Followed the following week, on the 4th of September, by their official reopening in Burwood, and it was great to see that they're now in a more salubrious environment, and they'll grow that into their own home, and it really will be fantastic. Going to the calligraphy exhibition at Tūranga was again a fantastic example of what we can celebrate within our city. Master Tung is 99 years old and still going strong, and his calligraphy is exquisite. So I do recommend the exhibition is still going, so I do recommend that. The Christchurch conversation with Helen Clark was awe-inspiring. The young people who sat on the stage with her after Dr. Bronwyn Hayward had led a conversation with Helen, the young people then put their own questions to her, and it was extremely engaging. TEDx, big shout out to Kyla Colburn and her amazing team. This is the 10th edition that we had of TEDx, and I did have the privilege of meeting DeRay McKesson, who was an incredibly powerful speaker on innovation, equity and justice, and I was really impressed with the use of data to empower communities, activists and decision makers in this world of fake news. It was refreshing to hear the plain and simple truth. And there are a number of other events and still a lot of follow-up from the post 15th of March with some amazing gifts to the city and to our communities. So that was my August report, and then in September, of course, with the Mid-Autumn Festival, there were a lot of events to go to. The Gansu Province Party Secretary visit in honour of our 35th anniversary of our sister city relationship between Christchurch and Gansu Province. It's actually the second oldest sister city relationship between New Zealand and China. The Hindu birth of Ganesha festival was fantastic. The Philippine Awards was on the same night as the Vietnamese Mid-Autumn Festival dinner, so I had to swap between the two with Yanni accompanying me to both. And then the Smart Christchurch Innovation Expo, that was well worth going to. I hope councillors actually went down to the town hall and had a wee look-see. I got stuck at the City Care site around monitoring of water pressure and quality. That gives me great hope for the future as well, because they're going to have so much access to data that will help us protect our systems into the future, and we know a lot more about our assets than other cities do, which is why I think we can act with confidence in that regard. The opening of the CSO Centre at the Christchurch Town Hall was absolutely fantastic, as were the tributes of Aroha. The Westpac Champion Business Awards, which will feature in a presentation that I will make shortly, was also outstanding. But my little thing that just made my day was the Kate Shepherd announcement. The Kate Shepherd House announcement. I thought that we'd lost it, when the government said that it had not been able to settle, and they hadn't been able to settle with the previous owner, and the work carried on behind the scenes, and the ministry, the Heritage New Zealand was able to secure the purchase on behalf of the government and on behalf of the people of New Zealand, but it is such an awesome legacy for us, becoming a heritage venue and education centre, and I think that's just going to be absolutely outstanding. So I will welcome any questions that people might have of me. There being none, would someone like to move the receipt? Jimmy Chen will move it, and Andrew Turner will second it. So I will put the motion. All those.
Opportunity for some comment.
Oh, okay. I thought I was going to get away scot-free.
I would like to take the opportunity for some comment. So, Leanne, thank you for this report. These mayor's reports, I think, have been a great addition to our council agendas. And I think what these reports have done is to show the breadth of the role of the mayor, and in particular the breadth of the civic role of the mayor. Looking at these reports that are in front of us, I was at just a small number of the events and activities that have been described, and I think the other things that these reports do show the huge amount of work that you do, much of which, without a report like this, may not be as visible as these reports have allowed it to be. So I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for that work, but also to thank the councillors that have stepped in, realising that you can't be in two places at once, to make sure that the city is well represented, in fact generally very well represented, both within the city and outside of the city, as it needs to be and as it should be. But I thought it was appropriate just to say those words of thanks now as we're receiving these last two reports of this triennium. So thank you.
Thank you. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. sorry, there was another aspect to the report. Sorry, where's the... Sorry, I thought there was another resolution. Yeah, sorry, no, there was, because there's a... Sorry. No. I thought that we were going to acknowledge the departing council. Sorry, I thought that there was some wording that went into the cover report. Okay, sorry, that's my fault. So I apologise. What am I going to do? Okay, so
Yeah,
no, okay.
You can.
But I want to do something else. So,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
You don't
all right.
need to. You don't need to.
I don't need to. Okay, so
you can do whatever you like.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll come back. Well, we've done the resolution for number 1. Sorry, but there was a hidden item 2. So a second resolution. So and it is receive the mayor's report, brief report, report on the term, and acknowledge and thank councillors Vicky Buck, Phil Clearwater and Raf Manji for their service to the city. Yeah, and thank departing councillors. Yeah. No. These are people who have notified that they're not going to run again. And so, but I want to introduce this item just by saying a few words. And I don't often stand, but I am going to stand for this one. So just reflecting on the past 3 years as this term comes to a close, has been both uplifting and challenging, and I shared with some of you earlier on about going through all of my mayor's reports for the last 3 years and reflecting on achievements and also some of the challenges that we've faced. The openings have represented so many opportunities, and I'm not going to list them all, but we had the dedication of the Canterbury Earthquake National Memorial. We had the launch of the Community Resilience Partnership Fund, which was a joint fund between the council and the Minister of Health, a real partnership committed to wellbeing. We saw the opening of Hayata, the modern learning environment, Te Roto o Wairewa Memorandum of Understanding, which is a commitment between the council and the Runanga on maintaining and monitoring the opening and closing of the Lake Wairewa, Lake Forsyth, Little River. The launch of the Student Volunteer Army and the RSA Serve for New Zealand with tree planting in the Port Hills. We had the cruise berth announcement for Littleton. We had the launch of the Christchurch Multicultural Strategy. We had the Camellia Room, recognising 100 years since the first woman was elected to the City Council. I've put in Pecking Order opening night because I just love that movie. We had, there were just so many different openings, and I meant to highlight them so that we could look at them. We had the Sumner Centre opening. We had the electric vehicle launches, Yugo Citywide Shared Fully Electric, taking 45 tonnes of CO2 equivalent out of the atmosphere, the Omeo trial at CIAL, the future of Christchurch Cathedral confirmed. We hosted the Social Enterprise World Forum. We had the premiere of The Changeover, a fantastic movie We shared so many different openings, some, sad as well, the City Vision Women's Night Shelter, but a very necessary part of it. The 30th anniversary of Hinawai Reserve, the Cathay Pacific direct flight from Hong Kong, the Riwi Alley commemorations, the China-New Zealand Mayoral Forum, and the work that has been initiated off the back of that. We had the Zephyr Airworks trialling self-piloted electric air taxis here in Canterbury, the electric rubbish truck piloted by Waste Management. We had a number of things, the town hall opening, the Autumn Bradley Park Historic Stone Cottage, the opening of Taiora QE2 Sport and Rec. We had so many different welcomes to our city, and then I listed a number in the 2018-19 year as part of the annual report. And I guess the reason that I list those is just to look at the extraordinary nature of the good things that have happened in our city. But that being said, disaster after disaster marred this term. The Huranui Kaikoura earthquake was within a month of the 2016 election. The tsunami warning that was generated an hour after the earthquake occurred required us to review how we responded and led me to challenge the command approach of McDem. The Port Hills fire happened on the 14th of February 2017. We had major floods in July 2017. 2018 began with the enforced decision to chlorinate our drinking water. We had extreme weather events caused by ex-tropical cyclones, and of course the horror of the March 15 terror attacks that targeted our Muslim communities in their time of worship and prayer, and I've already spoken to that in my comments on the annual report. But as we come to this point, at the end of this term, I want to pay tribute to the hard work and the commitment of the council staff that have supported us in all of these different both challenges and also the positive things that have been achieved. And I want to thank Mary Richardson for stepping into the acting chief executive role, and to acknowledge our former chief executive as she left us in June at the end of her contract. And I'm looking forward to the arrival of our new chief executive who will take up her role very shortly. But what I want to pay tribute to is to the hard work also and commitment of our three retiring councillors, Councillors Vicky Buck, Phil Clearwater and Raf Manji, who've all chosen not to seek re-election to the council in the local body elections this year. Today's their last official scheduled council meeting, but as I've said before, there may be another. And I just want to acknowledge each of you. I should refer to you formally as Councillor Buck, but Vicky, your involvement in local body politics dates back to 1975. In 1975, when at 19 years old you became the country's youngest city councillor. It makes it very easy to work things out. She went on to become Christchurch's first woman mayor, serving with distinction for 3 terms between 1989 and 1998. You then took a break from politics and did a whole lot of really interesting things, but returned to serve as a councillor for the Riccarton ward in 2013. And I personally cannot thank you enough for doing that. I know that you blame me for it, but I did suggest that there was an alternative, and you listened to me. You helped me transition from central government to local government, and I really appreciate that. It was always going to be hard for me coming from central government. I knew what I knew about central government, but I was entering into a world that I didn't have the experience of. But with you by my side, it made all of the difference in the world. So thank you very much personally from the bottom of my heart for what you did for me, but also what you did for the city. You've taken up you were Deputy Mayor from 2013 to 2016. You chaired the Innovation and Sustainable Development Committee. You made that your own, you made your mark, you have required us as a council to look to our obligations in terms of climate change. And as somebody else once said, we are the first generation to experience the impacts of climate change, and we are the last generation who can do something about it. And Vicky, thank you for your leadership, thank you for your incredible courage, and thank you for all your Facebook postings. I'm going to miss that. I don't know whether we can contract you back in just to do Facebook postings on council activities, because you make them more interesting than they sound while we're experiencing them at the time. But thank you very much. Councillor Phil Clearwater, you were elected to council same time as I was elected as the mayor in 2013, after having served 18 years on the Spraden Heathcote Community Board, including 12 years as board chair. And I want to acknowledge that service as part of my acknowledgement of your contribution as well. You started in 2013 by chairing the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee, and under your leadership a lot was achieved. And I want to acknowledge that, because I know that you've taken on a different role, the Social, Community Development and Housing Committee, in the last 3 years. But that has just shown the breadth and the depth of your experience, and the incredible background that you have brought to the table. What I love about the council as a table is that we all have different personalities, we have different styles, we have different skills, we have different strengths, and yes, we all have weaknesses as well. And how we, sort of adapt to how others might respond to them is also the mark of an individual in terms of their character. So thank you very much for your service to your community and to your city, and your support for me and your role as well. Thank you very much. And Raf, I've left you last, not for any reason other than you have been, you've kind of been the voice of a, I was going to say the voice of a conscience, but it's a conscience that reflects your background, not only in social enterprise, but also, and your incredible financial background, but it is that commitment to the city that you were prepared to make 6 years ago. And I know you blame me as well, but to be honest with you, in this forum, I couldn't have done what I did without you. You have made such an extraordinary difference. Your capacity to grasp the essence of what needs to be done in terms of our governance role in holding the organisation to account for both financial rigour, but also performance in terms of the delivery of projects. You've stepped into roles in a project governance sense that are outside the normal roles of governance, and we all thank you for doing that. I don't think that we would be in the position that we are in today if it hadn't have been for you providing leadership around the global settlement of our insurance to start with. I think we were all in a state of shock when we first read the details of the cost-sharing agreement and what had been agreed to ahead of any financial assessment of what we would expect from our insurance. And of course, I think you've made a number of comments in relation to the sense of indicating to reinsurers ahead of that negotiation being concluded, where the government might want certain assets to be located, which might indicate a certain predetermination as to the outcome of the assessment. Not that I'll go into details of that here, but your insightfulness, your financial background, but also your commitment to social enterprise and your commitment to people and your commitment to inspire and mentor other people, young people coming through the system and encouraging them to take leadership roles. You really are a valuable asset to the city, and I don't want you to leave. So just bear that in mind. I think that there are ongoing roles for you in terms of assisting this council in its next phase, and certainly if I'm in a position to do so, I shall be knocking on your door pretty soon thereafter. So to all three of you, thank you very much for what you have done for us. I'm going to invite each of you to give your valedictory address to the council, and I would like to take this final opportunity to thank all councillors for their commitment. We don't always agree with each other. I don't often expect unanimity around the table, but what I do expect is a willingness to engage and to try and find solutions that as many of us as possible can agree with, and for that I thank you very much. I've spent the last certainly 6 years, but worked very hard in the last 3 years building relationships across the region and building relationships across the agencies that we deal with, and of course central government's key to that as well. And I think relationships are the key to the city going forward. So thank you all very much for being willing to have a relationship with me, with each other, and ensuring that we do get what we can done in a way that is respectful of each other and respectful of the community as a whole. So on that note, could I invite Raf Manji to give his valedictory address.
Oh God, how do I follow that? Thank you, Leanne, for those comments. It's interesting reflecting here after 6 years, which, to me has been kind of a project. It's been ultimately solving the council's financial woes post-earthquake and delivering what was an incredibly ambitious, over-ambitious project coming out of the blueprint, and also sadly underfunded, and that's never a position anyone wants to be in. In accepting the annual report just earlier today and reflecting on the asset base of the council, nearly $15 billion of assets in the group, with nearly $11 billion of net equity. That is what we have. That is our clear net worth. The city is actually in a fantastic financial position. I know sometimes ratepayers don't feel that, but it is. And to give you some sense of where we've come from, in 2013, so 6 years ago, the total assets were just over $9 billion, and the net equity was around $7 billion. So we've increased our net equity by nearly $4 billion. So we have got something for all this money that we have spent. And I think, for me, leaving the council in a position where the next council has probably a bit more luxury to engage with its community and decide on the priorities for the next 5 to 10 years, it will be coming off a good base. And we've done a lot of work and a lot of expenditure that other councils will have to face in the coming years. So it's a fantastic place to finish. The global settlement was signed off by Cabinet, I believe, couple of days ago, this week, and that brings an end to that pretty terrible cost share agreement that we all discovered when we first came in 2013, and we could talk all day and all night about that. And when I reflect on some of the dramas, especially in that first term, which was incredibly difficult because we were flying blind a lot of the time. We arrived in an organisation that didn't have a chief executive, didn't have a chief financial officer, had an insurance claim that was up in the air. I still remember, Leanne, that first meeting we had with the local Authority Protection Plan chair, and that was quite robust when I expressed incredulity on how poor the situation was. They were interesting days, and I'm sure some of those stories will have to wait for memoirs because we couldn't possibly talk about them now. But we've come a long way, and I think people have done a lot of hard work. It's been very challenging. I think the organisation has actually done a great job in phenomenally difficult circumstances. We've learnt a lot about insurance and risk, and a lot of the stuff I've been involved in is under the engine, and it's it doesn't always see the light of day. But we have done a lot of work around risk management. internal audit processes, making sure the organisation doesn't make the mistakes it made previously, and getting ourselves into shape so you can actually sit down and do the fun stuff, the stuff that, you know, Vicky does so incredibly well. And we need that, but we need a firm platform to be able to go out and engage and do that stuff. I think we're in good shape for the long-term plan. We've already put that process into place, and I'm really excited and hopeful that the new council will get around to looking at things like citizens' assemblies, participatory budgeting, and giving their citizens better opportunities to engage around a whole range of issues. That is the biggest challenge for government, local or central, all around the world. If you lose touch with your people, you have a huge problem. I think Christchurch does that pretty well. It has done that well in the past. But the earthquake has put a cloud over everything, and sometimes when I'm out there talking to people, I still get the sense they don't understand what happened. They don't understand the financial implications. They don't understand how much it has cost. But I have no doubt, come 2025, this will be the best city in New Zealand by a long way. And it will be. And I think if you get some of those tricky issues right, you know, the transport is challenging, but there's a great opportunity. The foundation, the canvas here is still ready to be worked on. We're still only probably halfway through. I remember Art Agnos, who came here in May 2011 for the TEDx Christchurch conference, and he walked around the city and he said 10 to 15 years. Yeah. He'd been through it before. He knew how long these things take. He goes, it always takes longer and always costs more. And the blueprint just overpromised and gave people, you know, a full sense of what was coming. And we've had to battle with that, and it's been difficult. I would like to say a few thanks. I want to thank all those people who've supported me over the last 6 years, inside council and outside council. I see Mabel there at the back. Thanks for all your help, Mabel, over the years. You give a lot of support to the councillors. We have busy lives, and our organisation sometimes slips, so thank you for all your support. I'd like to acknowledge my fellow councillors. I have no doubt, even though we do disagree from time to time, that everyone is extremely committed to serving the public, and people work incredibly hard. So I'd like to acknowledge all of you. Leanne, I would like to acknowledge you as our mayor of the last 6 years. You know, we've worked closely together. That first term was really pretty rough, and you know, we had to fight a lot in Wellington. I'm just remembering my favourite meeting of all of them was in the PM's office before the long-term plan, and that kind of encapsulated the whole drama that we dealt with for so long. And we had quite a few of those interesting conversations. But you've worked incredibly hard. Being the mayor is a phenomenally difficult job. It's one of the hardest jobs in this country. And in the situation that we came into, the demands are phenomenal. You have to kind of do so many different roles well, and no one's perfect. No one can do all of those roles themselves. So you do require a lot of support, but you've stuck at it. You represent the city incredibly well, and I thank you for doing that, and wish you well in the future. And finally, I'd like to thank the voters, the citizens of this great city, well, I could say thank you for electing me, but you know, mostly thank you for electing me, and giving me the privilege and opportunity to represent you and act on your behalf in your best interest, which I've always tried to do. How difficult that has been sometimes, and sometimes it's not that pleasant on the pocket, but I believe we've mostly made the right decisions. But thank you for that. It is a privilege to do this role. And I think for all those people who are putting their name forward, that's great. But you do carry a big responsibility, but it is also an honour to serve the public. So I'd just like to say thank you, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Phil Clearwater.
Well, Councillor, I want to start off actually by thanking you, Leanne, firstly for your kind words. I felt a little surprised but quite touched. And I want to thank you too, Leanne, for your huge dedication to our city. And like your mayoral report today, to me is an example of how extremely hardworking you are. And also want to thank Councillor Andrew Turner too for your the leadership you both have shown while I've been a councillor. So it's sort of quite incredible almost and hard to believe that this is, well, almost my last council meeting. I thought it was going to be my last, but close to it. So as Leanne indicated, I was first elected to the Spraydon Heathcote Community Board in 1995. And in fact, historically, it was an exciting time in political history.
Who was the mayor then? Oh, sorry.
There you are. It was exciting in terms of political history because we'd had the election of the Clark-Anderton government, and I'm fairly sure, Leanne, that you were part of a key part of that government. And for me, the background to my journey really in local government was that I had huge admiration for the social justice values and leadership of the late Jim Anderton, who was the MP for Sydenham and later the Deputy Prime Minister. And I was proud to be chair of Jim's electorate committee. And so I want to start today in leaving council to pay tribute to the late Jim Anderton. And I have to say, I couldn't have had a finer mentor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to acknowledge Carol Anderton as a former city councillor who did a lot besides supporting Jim and a lot of people. She did a lot to develop social housing with the new complexes then, such as the Tommy Taylor Courts when they were new. And I learned a lot from Carol, but also from former councillor and committee board chair Oscar Alpers with his very calm and thoughtful chairing. And today I also want to acknowledge Councillor Tim Scandrett, because Tim has worked so collaboratively with me, particularly to solve so many residents, often very challenging issues in the Spraydon Cashmere ward. So thank you, Tim. And for my third term at the community board, I was quite surprised that the board members asked me to be the chair. And it was a steep learning curve, I'd have to say, with some rather stroppy but totally passionate board members like Carol and Carolyn, God bless them, and as well Dr Megan Woods, now the Minister, and besides Sue Wells and Barry Corbett. So now you know why some people say that when I'm chairing meetings I'm as controlling as a headmaster. So after 4 terms as chair of the board, I think I got most of the knack. I never had to send anyone out of the room, but 1 or 2 went close. However, there's no doubt, and I will say it again, that the Spraydon Cashmere Community Board was simply the best. So being on the community board was very good training for me to be a city councillor. And at the beginning of my first term in 2013 was a really exciting time. And then, you know, looking back, it was just a little more than 2 years after the earthquakes, and there was a huge amount of reconstruction of the whole city in front of us. And then, as you know, in March 2014, we had some of the biggest floods in Christchurch's history. And so I'm proud that Leanne set up the Mayor's Task Force on Flooding, and that led to the development of the land drainage program. And it's been a remarkably successful program, returning much of Christchurch to its pre-earthquake conditions for flood control. And of course, a major project I am particularly proud of is the Major Cycleways program, and we're well on our way to completing the 13 planned major cycleways. I want to say to the residents some of whom have never seen a single bike on a cycleway, well, the council stats recorded from our counters show in late August over 300,000 cycle trips were made. And so over the last 3 years that Councillor Pauline Cotter has chaired the ITI committee, there's been a growth of 20% each year, which is increasing, with Unicycle now having 1,000 cyclists a day and Quarryman's Trail on Antigua Street carrying about 800 cyclists a day. So that's lots of cars off the road, and I'm sure leading to a real transport change of mode in Christchurch. I want to thank some people after many years of working with you, but there's always a risk of leaving some special people out, and so I apologise if this happens. I want to start by thanking all the members of my committee, the Social Community Development and Housing Committee, and in particular Councillor Glenn Livingston as Deputy Chair and Chair of the Housing Subcommittee. Glenn, you've been a loyal Deputy Chair and have worked really hard. And also I want to thank Councillor Jimmy Chen as Chair of the Multicultural Subcommittee. Because in my view, both those subcommittees have worked regularly and hard with good results. And while I'm talking about referring to housing, I want to certainly congratulate Vicky on her perseverance with the shared equity scheme being finally set up, but also her commitment to the establishment of the Otautahi Community Housing Trust. And in relation to our Multicultural Committee, and the work that's been done here for many years, our council was well placed in our relationships with people of other cultures when the terrible massacre occurred on the 15th of March. Availability of housing is a huge issue right across New Zealand, as well as in Christchurch, and fixing council social housing due to long-standing underfunding is not a new problem. But I'm proud that council has contributed to the funding of the Housing First program, as has been referred to earlier by Glenn, I think. The people in our city who are homeless include the most vulnerable, many having literally lived on the street or under bridges for a long period of time. Again, this problem is not new, and I know that as a former mental health social worker. But I'm proud that the key to the success of the Housing First program has been the excellent collaboration between the housing agencies, with strong support from our City Council and central government, working in a genuine partnership with our housing and helping agencies. I'm also proud of Council's excellent heritage strategy and implementation plan. With a huge loss of heritage in our city from the earthquakes, having a clear plan supported by Ngāi Tahu and strong community interest and investment that will continue to assist the story of restoration of Christchurch's beautiful historic buildings and places. And I'll reiterate some of the buildings that other councillors and elected members have referred to today. Our Town Hall, the Nurses Memorial Chapel, the Rose Historic Chapel, and the Sign of the Tākehi. All of these historic buildings are now there for our communities to use and enjoy, and they're clear symbols of Christchurch's proud heritage. And I also want to pass on my sincere thanks to the people like the Historic Places Trust Board and all of the Christchurch people who have helped stop what would have been a greater loss than what we did endure. I want to thank each and every one of our council staff. As elected members, we're indeed very fortunate to have your knowledge and skills to advise and assist us. And I've really valued this over my years as a community board member, a chair, councillor and committee chair. And I especially want to also thank Mary Richardson for your leadership, Mary, as acting CEO over the last recent months, and also earlier as the principal advisor to my committee. I also sincerely thank Brent Smith, John Fussell and Andrew Rutledge as committee advisors, besides David Corlett and the earlier committee secretaries for your wise advice and helpful assistance. And for the ITI committee, I sincerely thank Dave Adamson, Richard Osband and Lynette Ellis from Transport, and Keith Davidson from Land Drainage and Carolyn Ingalls in conjunction with all your hard-working teams. And finally, I do thank both Raywin Ogilvie and particularly Mabel Ching for your efficient, loyal and hard-working secretarial assistance. And to all of you as City Councillors, I know that being a councillor can be very hard and challenging work, and I wish those of you continuing for the next term the very best. I'm confident that the appointment of Dawn Baxendale as Council's new Chief Executive will assist the necessary change for the whole of Council. And leaving my community board and council does feel bittersweet. But I'm proud of the achievements we have made together, and no matter what the future brings, I hope to see you all again in some form.
Vicky Buck. Can I just start by saying thank you to you for your comments? They were very kind. And I have to say it's the first time I've been called retiring in my entire life.
I meant it in the other sense.
It's great. I have to say to all councillors, I know how hard you work, and I appreciate that every time you come here it's a challenge. So I just want to say thank you for what you do, because I don't know that you that often get thanked for what you do. Leanne, in terms of your job, I know how full on it is. I know there's no rest from it, and that wherever you go, you remain the mayor, and that it is an incredibly hard and demanding job, and I wish you all the very best for the upcoming elections. To a whole heap of staff, to Mary for, I don't know when you sleep, Mary. I don't think you do.
Well, 3 and 4.
Because you're just there all the time. The incredible invention of the Office of the CE, so you can send them the weirdest and most amazing issues, especially to Margaret, who just goes, I don't know, she seems to get all mine. I know there's more people there, but Margaret seems to get all mine. I think they allocated me to Margaret early on. Thank you, Margaret. It's been amazing what you have done, and of the most diverse and incredible range of things. To Joss and Di and the team, I think you're amazing. I think Newsline is an incredible invention. I think it's great. And I think the work you do is incredible. To Brendan and Tony Moore and to the team at the Innovation and Sustainability Committee, who I thoroughly enjoy, I just want to say a huge thank you to you. You've made it fun. It's been great. And just in case you're wondering, we spent all the year's allocation of money on Monday. It's $1,200 left, yeah. To Bruce Rendell, he's not here, but I know Bruce works incredibly hard. He thinks he's going to get some sleep when I leave, because I won't be asking him things. To so many people who have been so cool, Dave Edmondson, just so many people. To the staff at the community board, I don't know how you've stayed sane. You have done so well. And to Sam at the Mayor's Welfare Fund and to the others at the Mayor's Welfare Fund, Sam has made an amazing difference. To Mabel, who has done God knows what all, to whatever you ask her, to Raywin and to Louise and to Ruth, thank you for everything that you do, and to so many of you. To the lunch crew of Pauline and Anne in particular, but sometimes Phil, sometimes Glenn, sometimes Sarah, sometimes Yanni, sometimes Mike, all sorts of people who just keep others sane. Really important. I think one of the secrets of council is that people actually don't know the incredible breadth and how full of possibilities councils are. So in a meeting, you can be dealing with water, rates, new rates policies, cycleways, a new road, community facility, skate park, the impact of government changes, or 16 other things, along with Vox Pops, which I love Vox Pops, because you just have no idea what's going to come at you. And actually now I should remind you as councillors, you actually get paid properly, which is a relatively new innovation. When I was first a councillor, the maximum pay was $260 a year. So all the councillors worked as well as be on the council. And you only got that if you came to the maximum number of meetings. I have to say, coming back into council, particularly for the Riccarton ward, which I abolished on the Local Government Commission in 1989, has a certain irony to it, because I can remember Dick Harrington telling me what he thought of abolishing the Riccarton ward, which apparently had nothing to do with Christchurch City Council. I have to say another special thank you to Leanne, because Trevor Mallett, when he was Minister of Education, and we were applying to set up a special character school in Christchurch, Discovery, and later Unlimited, sent Leanne down to, I think, try and talk us out of it, or to check whether we were half-pay decent people.
Associate Minister of Education.
Oh, that's why I sent you, okay. But she obviously went back and told him the right things, and it did mean for at that time that we were allowed to establish Discovery 1 and then Unlimited, which was fantastic, because I had a son who was hating school with a vengeance and didn't realise how many other kids were in exactly the same situation. But when we established them, it's now our Tawhiti Unlimited Discovery, and is back in the town, and I have to apologise to Nikki Kay for nagging her every week on that on that subject when she was Minister, to bring it back in. So some of the things that were fundamental in setting that up were to remind kids, particularly, to question everything, because just because it's been that way forever, and that's the way it's always been done, it doesn't necessarily make it right or sensible. So question everything, and keep that sense of curiosity and possibility, and do the things that excite and enchant you. And it's okay to fail, you will often, and anything may be possible, but you won't know until you give it a go. When we were writing the document, because I got to write all the documents because I know nothing about education, so I got to write them. I don't know how that worked. But I was determined in the schedule of what we were allowed to do to put the F word in there, and no, and it's not the usual F word that I use, the fun word in education. And I have to say, getting that through the Ministry of Education was quite a challenge. Apparently education is not meant to be fun, but I absolutely think it is, and I absolutely think it needs to be in politics as well, that it's really important that that whatever you're doing is fun, and that applies to this job as well as any others. In New Zealand and in Christchurch, I think we have enormous freedom to question everything, to break the rules, to do whatever. And I remember when I was at Girls High, I questioned in the 4th year there, because I was planning to stay, why did I have to do Latin? Because I still don't know the answer, and I wanted to do Japanese or Mandarin. And I suggested to the then principal, Miss Prisk, that since she couldn't give me an answer right then, I'd come back and debate it later. And she said, "There will be no debate, Vicky." So at that point, I decided it was time to leave school and go to uni. So I went to uni at 16, and I have to say a similar thing happened when I did my thesis, which started off being, because I was already on the council when I was writing it, so I thought, well, I can get good help from all the people around me. So it was local government, who pays, who governs and who benefits. And I wrote the chapter on who pays before I checked with the guy in charge, the professor, Keith Jackson, was that okay as a topic? And when I showed him the topic, he said, that's sociology, not political science. So I decided, well, having written the one on local government finance, I was now bored with it, so it would just be on local government finance. Great career move, I have to say. So I have to say, make sure that you keep the fun and the kindness in politics. There were a number of things that happened this term. The one I found the most devastating was the mosque attacks. It knocked me completely. And I have to say a huge, huge thank you to the many people, especially from the Muslim communities, who exhibited such amazing forgiveness and such love that I have seldom seen. And I have to say that helped me and so many of us enormously. I don't yet know if we've seen how powerful those responses from so many people in the Muslim communities was, and the power that it will continue to have. I think it was absolutely amazing. I found it the hardest thing ever to deal with, and what they did was just incredible. Sorry, it comes with laughing easily. It's the counter of that. And worse, my 2 kids both cry easily as well, and they blame me for it. So whenever there's a family row or anything, it's just horrible. I have to say, if we think about what councils are here for, I got told often, so many times in council, that you're here for the 3 R's, roads, rates and rubbish. And I think that is one of the 3 R's. I think that's complete rubbish. That there is way more to councils, especially city councils, where you have a large city, than that. And I think we all want to be able to take for granted those basic things. And what city councils are about, what local government is about, is actually about helping all those who live here to be all that they can, because I think that's what makes city politics exciting, and that's how a community expresses its identity and what it wants to be. So that demands that we deal with housing, community facilities, means that the same opportunities are there for all people. It means safe cycleways on all school routes and all suburbs. It means opportunities for all cultures, all races, all ages, especially kids who are too young to be able to have the vote. And it means taking action on things that people find hard to visualise, such as climate change. And it means that we will live now, and for all of us, with incredible change at a rate that's unprecedented, that will make every structure in every organisation creak, because we have not dealt with the level of change that we will see. So I just want to say to all of you, you have an amazing position. Enjoy it, have fun, be kind to each other. Don't take the stress home, it's not worth it. It's not a good thing to take home. I had a mental thing that I developed when I was first on council of depositing the baggage at the door as I went out of the council room. I think it's quite a good thing to do. In terms of what's next, because I have such a defined career path in my life, I haven't got a clue. So I've got no idea. The only thing I suspect it will involve is something around climate change, because I think if you're living now, you're the last generation that has the chance to avoid the massive climate disruption that we're about to face and the mass extinctions that we're about to face. So if we don't do it, no one else will. But I want to wish all of you, I think you've been amazing to work with, actually. I think it's been a really good couple of terms of council. And so I want to say a huge thank you to all of you, especially you, Leanne, and wish you incredibly well. And whatever you're doing in the next term, I won't come back and make submissions, I promise. I didn't for 15 years. I had no intention of coming back. But have fun with what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Yeah, thank you. It's just, that's been an amazing presentation and a well worthwhile opportunity to hear from our three departing members. So thank you very much. So I will put the motion. Although, should I do that before I put the motion? Yeah, no, I will. Okay. Well, would you each like to come forward? Ref Manji. There's a little one.
Is it like a clock?
Yeah.
I'm such a photographer.
Oh, that's good.
Jocelyn is fine. That's very good.
Thank you. And my personal gift, which is all sustainable, and it's this wonderful company, Atique, which has, it's made up filtered water.
You don't have to sign the gift register now.
Yeah. It isn't a clock. Which is a chapter. One of those. You are being
Look at us, we're all great.
and a personal gift and Vicky.
Just what I need, a plaque.
Another one.
You want to blow? She thinks it's for her teeth. Well, I said it was a plaque.
I need toothpaste. Other side of it. Other side. Come on. Look like you're enjoying it. Look like you're enjoying it. Fun. Remember, you've got to have fun. Oh, God.
It's not 1975.
Yeah, I've got one of these.
Right, okay. And
that's very sweet of you.
completely
Thank you.
recyclable,
Thank you very
completely sustainable. Impossible. Yeah,
use your non-sustainable plastic to go with it. That's not my fault. All right, so after those presentations, I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. I would now like to move the resolution to exclude the public and to allow certain individuals to remain for the court theatre item, for which I've already going to present myself, and the reasons for it are all set out on the relevant pages of the agenda. So I'll move that, seconded by Andrew. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And I will adjourn the meeting until 2 o'clock. Thank you.